LSU begins Clemson prep, but will Brian Kelly name starters before the openers? We got some stuff to talk about. Locked on LSU. Here we go.
You are Locked On LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thanks so much for making us your first listen. We're free, available wherever you get podcasts, of course, on YouTube as well. So please subscribe, as always. One of the fastest ways to help us grow is by leaving your comments below. So thank you sincerely for that. Bit of a housekeeping day here. We're recording this on Saturday. LSU is set to scrimmage tonight in Tiger Stadium. They had a walkthrough on Friday. If you missed Friday's practice report, you can catch that as always, wherever you get podcasts or on YouTube. It's just our previous episode from this one. And it was just a very light day at the entire thing at the indoor facility, just about a 90-minute workout. Whit Weeks had the day off. Garrett Nussmeier participated very little. Brian Kelly told us afterwards that just load management for those guys, that they weren't going to practice Whit 5 days in a row, that Nussmeier, they track every throw he makes. So when he hits a certain threshold, a number, they scale it back. So basically he just had a mental rep day, but everybody full go for the scrimmage Saturday night in Tiger Stadium. Interestingly as well, that scrimmage would be with the lights on, the video boards on, the ribbon boards, all to simulate as best they can what it'll be like for a Saturday night game at Clemson. So very much a lot of that preparation is getting in. Now, there is no media access to that scrimmage, unfortunately. Otherwise, I'd love to be there and tell you what I saw. But it's pretty clear, though, that they're at this point now where they're very much switching to Clemson mode. And when part of fall camp is all about technique and fundamentals and install of the LSU offense and defense, when it switches more to game plan, that's probably when our access gets limited a little bit. When Brian Kelly met with reporters after practice on Friday, he was asked about when they were going to start working on Clemson. He said that work's begun.
Yeah, we started Tuesday, working towards, Clemson demo, if you will, scout, however you want to use the words. We started to look at, going up against their fronts and certainly their offensive structure. We began that on Tuesday. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we'll do a little bit more tomorrow. So, we'll get in 5 days this week, full week next week, and then our third week. So it'll be a week more than any bye week that you have. So we'll have no excuses about recognition of scheme.
So it's very interesting that they've already started Clemson install on Tuesday, because typically the way fall camp goes is what I just sort of alluded to. You've got your month of fall camp, and at some point you start to taper down and get ready for the season, and then obviously you'll have your game week. So by the time LSU is done with fall camp a week from Saturday, which would ultimately be Saturday of week 0 of the college football season, that would be practice 21 of fall camp for LSU, 21 over the 4 weeks that they have to get their 21 practice days in before game week. So, but typically it's a lot of fundamental install of your stuff. It's good on good, which is much of what we've seen. If you've been following a lot of our practice reports, I've been telling you it's been a lot of ones-on-ones. Well, if you're interested, you can go back to Tuesday's episode when I gave you the practice report, and I did mention for the first time we saw something different. We saw 1s-on-2s, and we started seeing scout team periods. So we didn't know what we were watching at the time, but very clearly that was LSU starting to get a look at what Clemson is going to look like, what their fronts are going to look like on both sides of the ball. So they started on Tuesday. I asked Brian Kelly the follow-up, because this has been such a singularly focused offseason, where everything has been about Clemson, that nobody's hiding it, right? And Brian Kelly's spoken pretty openly about that, how that's a change they've made. For the first time in his career, he's focusing on one opponent, not the entire schedule. It's all Clemson. Actually, if you walk into the team room where our interviews with the players and the coaches take place, right when you walk in the team room, on the left wall, like as you're walking in on the left wall, there's 15 slots, 3 rows of 5. And that's typically the schedule, and had been, by the way, the schedule for LA, with your 12 regular season games, the the SEC championship game, college football playoff, national championship game, were the 15 slots that they had. Well, when we were in there on Friday, they've all been covered up except one. They're all just yellow with the LSU Tiger head logo, except one, the Clemson date. So it's very clear that they are focusing on Clemson. So I asked Brian Kelly the follow-up, is it common to start this early in camp? Because typically, and again, I mentioned this is my 19th year covering LSU, 19th fall camp. Typically, the week before game week, you might start to make use of some of those days, and then a full week of game week as you normally would prepare. So I say, is this common to start this early? Because it will have been 18 days from Tuesday when they started Clemson prep until the game on the 30th.
I think I've had teams that I haven't started on an opponent until the last week because we had so many question marks about so many different parts of our offense, defense, and special teams. This one has been, I think, driven by the fact that we have some veteran players on both sides of the ball that allowed us to transition into our opponent a little bit sooner. But there have been some years that have been later, and right about now, we didn't start until Saturday for USC last year. So that's 5 days ahead, in terms of preparation. So I think it's year to year, team to team.
Year to year, team to team. Now, obviously, if LSU's opening with Georgia State, they're not going to start a 3-week preparation. But you heard Brian Kelly say last year against USC, they started on Saturday, which would be today. So this year with Clemson, they gave themselves Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 4 additional days, including the Saturday, to get ready for Clemson. I don't know that I'm reading too much into that, other than what we all know. They are changing things this offseason because of the importance of what they perceive as this game. Now, I've been asked a lot if I think this is a must-win game, and if you've listened to me or followed my stuff for any length of time, I'm allergic to that phrasing. I only try to use must-win when it is a literal must-win. Like, you must win or you are eliminated from SEC contention. You must win or your season is over, that sort of thing. Clemson is not a must-win for LSU. It would make achieving your goals infinitely easier exponentially easier if you win at Clemson, because then you could go 6-2 in the league, be 10-2, and make the college football playoff, which I think is certainly attainable for this LSU team. If you lose to Clemson, then really you only have one game to play with to get to that 10-2, but you could still go 6-2 in the conference with the right tiebreakers, end up in Atlanta, win the league, and still make the playoff. So yes, of course, it's easier path if you beat Clemson, win that Clemson game. But it's far from a must-win. It just changes your path. Now, one of the other things I asked Brian Kelly was about naming starters, because we have seen so much competition, in particular on the defensive side. And I'm curious if they're going to get to a point, and on the offensive line, where they start to pare down some of those rotations in their reps. I asked Brian Kelly that question. You're going to hear it when we continue Locked on LSU, your team every day. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day. It's a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, you're eyeing a long shot division winner, or you're ready to crown your Super Bowl champion before week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. Take a flyer on the MVP race. Maybe you love Joey B, maybe a little longer shot on JD5. Crown your champion in August. I'm continuing to pick the Bengals and will every year until they finally win it. Or you could parlay your division winner dark horses. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now. Because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. We're also brought to you by Rougette. Guys, I am pleased to be able to tell you about Rougette Ready. You've probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rougette Ready. Rougette Ready. It's the next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rougette is 3-in-1 formula. It dissolves under your tongue. It kicks in fast, on average in 15 minutes. And the effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. Listen, it's all completely online as well. Rougette connects you with a board-certified doctor and ships your treatment discreetly to your door. Head to rougette.com/lockedon and use the code LOCKEDONCollege to get 15% off today. That's RUGIET.com/lockedoncollege and use promo code LOCKEDONCollege for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit Rougette website for full safety information. So I had one follow-up question for Brian Kelly in his Friday press conference after talking about their Clemson preparation beginning and the commonality of starting so early. One of the things that we have talked about a lot here, and if you're an everydayer, shout out, you've heard us go through a lot of these things. On the offensive line, we've seen DJ Chester and Paul Mabinga on the left side, Cohen Eccles and Josh Thompson at right guard. We've even this week saw Cohen Eccles take some first-team reps at left guard. So you continue to see a rotation there. Defensively, Blake Baker even joked about it, said it's almost impossible to chart if you're trying all the substitutions that they're making defensively, and it's true, because even when they go team periods, you may see 2 snaps and then 8 new players defensively come in. I mean, I can confidently say Whit Weeks and Harold Perkins will never leave the field. They do not have a close substitute at middle linebacker for Whit Weeks or at the star position for Harold Perkins. I don't think that's breaking news to anybody, but there just isn't another option behind them that's even close. Listen, I think Tylen Singleton has been awesome so far in fall camp, taking a giant leap from year 1 to year 2. He's not Whit Weeks. We've actually started to see Jordan Gilbert play some at star behind Harold Perkins. Now, he's not going to be as effective in space and rushing the passer as Perk, but has some coverage ability playing safety. But let's just be abundantly clear. If you take Harold Perkins off the field and put Jordan Gilbert at star, it is a massive drop-off. But aside from those 2 spots, I could really believe anything, like we've talked about before. I could see at defensive end, I could see Gabe Relaford and Patrick Payton take the first snaps. I could see Jack Pyburn and Jamari Butler take the first snaps. At tackle, 6-year player in Jacoby and Guillory could line up next to Bernard Gooden, 2 veterans. It could be Ahmad Bro and Dom McKinley, 2 sort of incumbents. None of that would surprise me at all. You've had 6 different guys rotating at cornerback in this fall camp so far, and any and all of them could be on the field at some point in the first series against Clemson. And same at safety, as we've seen 4 guys really, I guess 5, rotate very fluidly at safety. So I asked Brian Kelly, look, at some point, are you going to name starters and pare down those reps? Because it's one thing if you're early in camp trying to get everybody reps and experience and maybe some confidence. But at some point, you got to start game planning for Clemson with the guys that are going to be on the field. I specifically think about that on the offensive line, where you want those 5 to behave as one, so the more reps they get together, the better. And so I asked Brian Kelly, at some point, do you pare down these reps? Like, do you name your starters and your starters start to get the lion's share of the reps, and then the 2s get 2s reps, and then so on and so forth? And candidly said no.
I want to continue the competition. I think it brings out the best in everybody, and some of our areas of concern last year were that we didn't have any depth and we didn't have that competition, and we couldn't keep the, a sharpness, if you will. And so we're going to continue to keep the reps in a manner that allows competition for all players.
A manner that allows competition for all players. I think Saturday evening, this scrimmage in Tiger Stadium is going to be so interesting because this team has been getting incrementally better every day. That's not coach speak. It's just obvious when I go back and look at my notes from the first day of fall camp, where Garrett Nussmeier in 7-on-7, for example, he was 7 for 7 day one. He was 11 for 12 in day two. A ball never hit the ground. And now you're seeing the defense, like on Tuesday of this week, we told you Monday was a day that really was dominated by Trey'Dez Green, Xavier Thomas, and Barian Brown. And then Tuesday was a day that was dominated by the secondary. I've told you, like, the early in camp, the offensive line struggled so mightily to block and keep Garrett upright in these 11-on-11 drills. This week in the two practices we saw where they went 11-on-11, they didn't allow a sack or even a pressure. So yes, over the course of 3 weeks, parts of 3 weeks, 2 full weeks, they've certainly gotten better. I think the depth is better on the back end. You have depth at linebacker. It's just those two spots I talked about. Harold Perkins, Whit Weeks. You do not have a backup there as well. And I could maybe even say the same thing for a guy like, Bernard Gooden, because he is, I think, your best interior pass rusher, at least as of right now. So you really, while he's light, physically at 268 pounds, you've got 4, maybe 5 guys that you feel like you can rotate in there. I mentioned Jordan Gilbert at the Star. Like, he's got a ton of experience when you look at Jordan Gilbert's playing career from Texas A&M to LSU. He played all of last year with a bum shoulder, and he's probably going to get passed by the 2 safeties you brought in Marcus Cooley and AJ Halsey, which naturally is why you brought those guys in. Also, Deshaun Spears and Javen Tobiano are playing well, but this is a guy that's played in 37 games with 21 starts. He's got a lot of experience, but certainly isn't Harold Perkins at the star spot. You want to talk about rotation, receiver. You have an embarrassment of riches at receiver. You've probably got 10 of the 14 scholarship receivers that I think at any point this year could be on the field and be impactful for you. You got some young guys that maybe have to develop a little physically and get there, but I think 10 of your 14 at any point could be on the field and you would feel like you're not missing a beat. Caden Durham, we talked about it, is the odds-on favorite to lead the SEC in rushing this year. So he's working his way toward potentially being an elite running back. And then obviously you've got Juwan Johnson, which, by the way, Brian Kelly did confirm that Juwan Johnson, he made a joke, but he did confirm Juwan Johnson is playing running back now.
We're going to hold a party. There's going to be a party later. We'll have balloons, and then he'll jump out of the cake and say, I'm a running back. Yeah. You set that up pretty good for him. He is focusing his time at running back at this point, and that's his focus right now.
How involved do you think he'll be in the offense?
I think he'll be very involved. Yeah, I think he's going to be an important part of what we do.
That's really, really exciting, and it's something that it confirms what we've talked about a ton here so far in all these practice reports, where Juwan Johnson isn't just a gadget gimmick player. He's very involved in basically every setup they do. Damian Ramos is back as your place kicker. He had a 60-yarder in live action in practice the other day. Aaron Burrell is fantastic. Or excuse me, Burrell hit the 60-yarder. That would have been good from 65. Damian Ramos has been so consistent for you. Barian Brown is back there returning punts, leads the SEC all time, career record in kickoff returns for a touchdown in the SEC. All that to say, you have depth, you have talent, you have this embarrassment of riches. There's a lot of spots there. Punt returner, the guard spots, defensive tackle rotation, receiver rotation, corner rotation, safety rotation, where they still haven't named and identified who their starters are going to be down one, snap one. And that may still be a little bit of an evolution. It was a year ago. But the difference is what Brian Kelly said there. The difference a year ago was you didn't have great depth. And throughout the season, you were searching for answers. This is one of those situations where you're not searching for answers. You're searching for opportunities to get all these very talented players on the field. I think this scrimmage on Saturday night will be a pretty big indicator of what steps they take toward that end. Okay, whatever news and notes and tidbits I happen to hear from the scrimmage, I'll gladly share with you on our next episode of Locked On LSU. Hey, do me a favor. If you would, if you're listening on podcast, please subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Rate us, leave a review. If you're on YouTube, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so you're notified whenever we post a new video. And let a friend know if they love the Tigers. We got you here every single day for Locked On LSU, your team every day.